My own father told me I wasn't welcome at his party because I looked poor. What he didn't know, I'd already bought his company. They judged me by my jeans, by my 10-year-old Civic, by the fact that I didn't flaunt labels or wear a $5,000 watch. To them, I was the struggling son. So when I showed up to my dad's 65th birthday, on time, dressed clean but simple, he looked me in the eye and said, asterisk, come back when you look like someone successful. Asterisk, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just walked away. 3 hours later, the investor he was trying to impress walked through that same door, holding my arm, and introduced me to the entire ballroom as the CEO of the company that now owned my father's legacy. So how did we get here? How did the so-called disappointment become the man who quietly saved everything his family thought he couldn't understand? This isn't a story about money. It's about value, the kind you build in silence, while the people closest to you are too busy watching your shoes to notice your work. Let me take you back, because this story didn't start in a ballroom. It started in a basement, with a broken laptop, and a reason to prove them all wrong. My name is Jordan Blake. I'm 33 years old, and I quietly run one of the most cutting-edge neural tech firms in the country, Synapse Link Technologies. From our downtown Seattle headquarters, we're pioneering the way human minds interact with machines. Our latest product just secured a DARPA-backed contract and a $40 million funding round. But if you ask my family back in Scottsdale, Arizona, I'm just Jordan, the underachieving son who couldn't even buy himself a real suit. My dad, Charles Blake, turned 65 tonight. A man who clawed his way up from working-class roots and built a respected manufacturing company, Blake Precision, that used to be the pride of the family. But lately, pride's been replaced with desperation. His business has been bleeding out for years, and the cracks are showing. Only, he doesn't know the truth yet. He doesn't know I bought his company 6 months ago through a shell corporation backed by Synapse Link when it was 1/4 away from bankruptcy. He doesn't know I saved it. He doesn't know that the person he's been quietly apologizing for at every dinner party is now his boss. And tonight is his big birthday gala, held at the ultra-exclusive Whisper Rock Country Club in Scottsdale. I received the invite on thick, gold-trimmed cardstock. Formal attire. Excellence expected. Translation? Don't you dare embarrass us. But I made my decision. I wasn't going to put on a show. I wasn't going to walk in wearing a $3,000 Brioni just to prove something. I would go as myself. My usual clean dark jeans, a crisp white shirt, navy blue blazer. No logos. No flexing. Just me. When I pulled up in my 14 Honda Civic, the valet blinked twice. He just parked a Ferrari, then a Bentley. I handed him the keys without a word. The moment I approached the club entrance, I saw her, Heather, my older sister. She looked like a red carpet nominee in a scarlet gown and towering heels. Perfect makeup and not a strand out of place. She clocked me immediately. Her smile vanished. What are you wearing? She demanded, stepping toward me like a bouncer. Jordan, are you serious right now? This is Dad's night. This is his reputation. I gave her a half smile. Good to see you too, Heather. She ignored it. You're not getting in like that. You look like you just left a Best Buy job interview. I'm wearing a blazer. You're wearing denim. She folded her arms, her voice lowering to a sharp whisper. This is not a joke. There are venture capitalists inside. Investors. People who actually matter. I looked her in the eye. You mean people who'll judge me for not wearing a Rolex? She hissed through clenched teeth. Dad's trying to rebuild after a rough quarter. This is a networking opportunity. I'm not here to network, I said. I'm here for Dad. Just then, the ballroom doors opened and out stepped my father. Immaculate tuxedo, silver cufflinks, and the same look I'd seen my whole life when I didn't meet expectations. He looked me up and down, slowly. Jordan, he said, voice cool. What is this? Happy birthday, Dad. He didn't smile. You knew the dress code. Everyone else managed to show up appropriately. Is this your idea of a statement? It's just clothing. It's disrespectful. Behind us, guests were pausing to watch. I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I kept my voice even. I'm not here to make a scene. Then come back when you're dressed like you belong. The words landed like a slap. He turned away. Heather was already steering him back through the doors. I stood there stunned. Not disruptive. Not late. Not rude, just not expensive enough. And in their eyes, that was worse than any of it. So I stepped back, out of the way of the glistening crystal chandeliers and champagne towers. And I made a choice. I wouldn't leave, but I wouldn't go in. The air outside the country club smelled like trimmed hedges and expensive perfume. From where I sat, on a stone bench nestled between manicured rose bushes, I could still hear the string quartet inside, playing some indistinguishable Vivaldi. Occasionally, the doors would swing open and laughter would spill out, reminding me just how far from that world I now sat. I wasn't angry. Not yet, anyway. Mostly, I felt the kind of heavy numbness that settles in your chest when something you always suspected finally gets confirmed. They never saw me. Not really. And even now, on a night that should have been about family, my appearance had spoken louder than my presence. My phone buzzed in my blazer pocket. Stephanie. I smiled a little. My COO, best friend since college, and the only person who could always cut through my storms. Text. How's the masquerade ball? I thumbed a reply. Got turned away at the door for looking like a peasant, currently hiding in the hedges. Cinderella style. She replied instantly, wanting to send the chopper. Tempting. And it was, but instead, I opened my email. Synapse link didn't stop for drama. I had integration updates from our transition team at Blake Precision. The irony burned. While my father toasted champagne inside, I was outside finalizing the strategy that would save his crumbling legacy. I was halfway through replying to a message from our Dallas office when I heard footsteps approaching along the flagstone path. I looked up, expecting a server or maybe a security guard ready to politely escort me off the premises. It was Richard Cole. Even in the darkened garden, he stood out. Tall, silver-haired, and composed, he carried the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Tailored dark suit, simple blue tie, no unnecessary shine. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me. Chairman Blake, he said with a small smile, didn't expect to find you hiding in a hedge maze. I stood, brushing non-existent dust from my pants. Didn't expect to be hiding here, either. He took in my surroundings, the quiet garden, the faint music drifting through the air. They really didn't let you in? I nodded. Heather intercepted me at the door like a bouncer. Dad backed her up, said I should come back when I looked appropriate. He blinked slowly. So, your father kicked out the CEO of the company that just bought his failing business. Yep. He let out a low whistle. That's either Shakespearean or reality TV. I can't decide. I think it's both. There was a beat of silence before he said, "So, now what?" I looked down at my phone, then back at him. I was just going to finish reviewing the integration reports, and then probably disappear before dessert. He gave me a long, thoughtful look. Early in my career, I showed up to a pitch meeting on the subway, wearing a suit I'd borrowed from my roommate. The receptionist told me deliveries went around back. What happened? I came back 2 years later and bought 30% of their company. I couldn't help but grin. What about the receptionist? Promoted her. She turned out to be brilliant, just prejudiced against poor transit choices. Then he extended an arm. Come on, let's go inside. Richard, no, you played modest long enough. Tonight is the moment. He didn't wait for my answer. He just started walking toward the entrance, fully expecting me to follow. And I did. As we approached the doors again, I spotted Heather standing near the entrance, laughing with a group of my dad's business acquaintances. She turned and froze. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She took in Richard Cole at my side, her social instincts calculating rapidly. Mr. Cole, she beamed. What a surprise. We didn't expect you so early. He stopped. I was just having a conversation with your brother. Wonderful garden you have here. Heather's smile twitched. Ah, yes. Jordan's always liked plants. Richard turned to me. Shall we, Madam Chairman? The words fell like thunder between us. Heather's face didn't quite register what she was hearing. Not yet, but the others did. I watched her eyebrows knit in confusion. Chairman, I didn't explain. I just stepped past her. The ballroom was a cathedral of light, crystal chandeliers, golden drapes, orchestras, ice sculptures of eagles. My father stood at the far end on a raised platform, microphone in hand, thanking guests and reminiscing about the early days of Blake Precision. His voice echoed over the crowd. And tonight, as I look out at all of you, I see the future of our legacy. He paused. Because he saw me. His smile faltered. The room hushed. Then Richard leaned into the mic. Charles, you never told me your son was the CEO of Synapse Link. The silence became total. The orchestra stopped mid-note. Someone dropped a fork. My dad blinked, visibly confused. Jordan? No, I think you're. Actually, Richard said, he's not only the CEO, but the majority shareholder. We've worked closely over the last 3 years. I assumed you knew. My father looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. You're the one who bought the company. I nodded. 6 months ago. But why? Because I believe it was worth saving, and because I still believed in you. For a moment, he just stood there, silent, processing, and then something shifted in his eyes, recognition, followed by shame. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? I asked. The crowd was silent. My mother stood frozen, a hand over her mouth. Heather looked like she wanted to melt into the carpet. I never wanted to make this about status, I said. I just wanted to be seen. Richard stepped aside, giving me the mic. And I said the one thing that had lived in my chest for 10 years. Success isn't measured by labels or brands or the kind of car you drive. It's measured by what you create, what you contribute, and how you treat people, especially when you think they have nothing to offer you. I set the microphone down gently and walked away. The ballroom didn't go back to normal. Not really. The string quartet resumed its song. The waiters poured fresh flutes of champagne, and the conversation slowly reignited, but the energy had shifted like the eye of a storm had passed through. I could feel the ripple effect even as I slipped out of the spotlight. Guests who had never made eye contact with me during family functions now watched me closely, whispering to each other in hushed, speculative tones. Some nodded in quiet respect. Others stared with something that looked an awful lot like embarrassment. My father stood rooted near the stage, still holding the microphone like he'd forgotten it was there. Then he handed it off to someone, slowly stepped down, and began walking toward me. He wasn't the same man who turned me away at the door 20 minutes earlier. There was a stiffness to his shoulders now, not the kind born from pride, but from the weight of realization. We met just outside the ballroom, near a coat check no one was using. Jordan, he said quietly, I need to talk to you. His voice didn't carry the same authority it used to. It was lower, rougher, a man trying to sort through a lifetime of assumptions in the span of a conversation. I folded my arms. All right. He hesitated. I don't know where to begin. Start with why my clothes disqualified me from my own father's party. He winced. Actually winced. That wasn't fair, he said. I was trying to manage a certain image tonight, and I let that override. Me? I offered. He nodded slowly. Yes. Do you know how many times you've done that, Dad? I said, not just tonight. Every dinner where you asked if I'd thought about getting a real job. Every time you looked at my Civic like it was something shameful. Every time Heather made a comment and you let it slide because she was the one who looked successful. He didn't defend himself. That was something new. I thought you were drifting, he admitted. You never boasted, never brought up promotions. And I didn't understand why you were always so quiet about everything. Because I knew the second I told you what I was building, you'd turn it into a trophy, I said. And I didn't want to be your trophy. I wanted to be your son. He looked down at his shoes. I never stopped being proud of you, he said. No, I corrected him. You just stopped showing it. That hit him. I could see it. And for a moment, we just stood there. Two men, two different generations, both raised to believe strength meant silence. I bought your company to save it, I said, breaking the quiet. But I didn't expect this moment. I didn't plan to make it a scene. I know. He took a long breath, then looked me in the eye. So what happens now? You report to a board chaired by me, I said, not unkindly. You still run day to day, but we bring in new tech leadership. Fresh blood. I'm not trying to erase what you built, but it has to evolve. He gave a short nod. And between us, that's harder, I admitted. A pause. But I want to fix it. If you do. His voice cracked slightly. I do. Just then my mother appeared. Eyes rimmed red, cheeks tight with emotion. She looked at both of us like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to step in. Mom, I said gently. She stepped forward and wrapped me in a hug, one she hadn't given me since college. "I'm so sorry, Jordan," she whispered. We got so lost trying to fit into a world we never came from. And you kept your soul. "It's okay," I said, even though it wasn't. "Not yet, but it could be." Heather arrived last. She looked like she'd been through her own private storm. Makeup slightly smudged, heels discarded, holding a flute of untouched champagne like it was a shield. "I didn't know," she said, her voice hollow. "No, you didn't ask," I replied. A pause stretched between us like a thin glass wall. "I was trying so hard to be what they wanted," she said, almost to herself. "I thought if I looked the part, said the right things, I'd win." I looked at her. "There's no trophy at the end of that game, Heather. Just exhaustion." She gave a tiny, shaky laugh. "You think it's too late to quit?" I softened. "Never." We stood in that hallway, all four of us, not quite whole, not quite healed, but finally stripped of pretense. For the first time in years, I felt like a son, not a disappointment in denim. Later that night, back at my hotel, I received a text from Dad. "Will you still come to Sunday dinner, even if the Civic's still in the driveway?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "I'll be there. Same as always. Just no more comments about the Civic." "Deal. Proud of you, son." "Always was. Just didn't know how to show it." 3 months had passed since the night I got banned from my father's party. Seattle's winter had begun to soften into spring, and from my 30th floor office at Synapse Link headquarters, the city skyline glimmered with a strange calm. From this height, the people below looked small, the cars like toys, the chaos of the world distant. But inside, things felt closer than ever, especially family. That night at Whisper Rock changed something, not just in them, but in me. And not because they finally saw my title, or because the world had caught up to what I quietly built. It changed because, for the first time in years, I stopped hiding. The integration of Blake Precision into Synapse Link wasn't seamless. My father bristled at first. He didn't like reporting to a board, didn't enjoy hearing younger voices challenge his methods. There were tense meetings, sharp words, one dramatic strategy session where he pushed back from the table and walked out, muttering that he wouldn't take orders from his own kid. I let him go, let him breathe, and I didn't chase him. But 2 days later, he was back, with coffee, a list of updated production ideas, and a quiet nod that said, "I'm still here." He started asking questions after that. Real ones. Curious ones. He came to respect the engineers, the data analysts, the UX teams, the people who spoke a different language than he did, but shared the same desire to build something better. And slowly, the company he once ruled with an iron grip began to shift under his influence. This time toward something more collaborative, more forward-thinking. But the bigger shift? That happened at Sunday dinner. The first few were awkward. Everyone danced around the truth, pretending nothing had changed while everything had. My mother tried too hard, asking questions about the neural systems thingies and digital data frequencies. Heather overcorrected entirely. She showed up to the first dinner in jeans and a plain gray sweater. No makeup, like she'd raided my closet for penance. "You don't have to become me," I told her in the kitchen. She blinked. "I thought you hated everything I stood for." "I didn't hate it," I said. "I hated being measured by it." That landed somewhere deep. "You really think I could start something of my own?" she asked one night, almost afraid of her own question. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "But only if it comes from you, not from trying to impress Dad or Mom or Scottsdale." A week later, she brought me a proposal for a sustainable fashion boutique. Small, local, focused on ethical sourcing. It needed work, sure, but it had her voice in it. And that was enough to start. My mother surprised me the most. One afternoon, just her and me at a cafe in Capitol Hill, she looked out the window and said, "You know, I never really felt like I belonged in that world we stepped into." "What do you mean?" "All those rules," she said. "How to dress, how to host, how to speak at fundraisers. I spent so many years trying to be someone I wasn't. And somewhere in there, I taught you and Heather to chase the same ghosts." I stared at her. "Mom, that's the most honest thing you've ever said to me." She smiled a little sad. "It's taken me this long to understand what authenticity really looks like. I see it now. I see it in you." We didn't hug. We didn't cry, but that conversation was the turning point. Not just for us, but for our whole family. Even Dad changed. About a month after the party, we were out at a restaurant. A former client has walked by our table and made a comment about my laid-back look. I braced for the usual, but my dad cut in, smiling as he raised his glass. My son dresses for practicality. When you're as successful as he is, you don't need to impress anyone. It was one sentence, but it healed 100. Now, he walks into meetings with less armor. He introduces me as his partner, not just his son. He still slips sometimes, but now there's effort. And effort matters. This morning, before heading into a call with our UK branch, he dropped by my office. The Jenkins contract came through, he said, holding the signed documents. They approved all the terms we negotiated. That's great news, I said. You made that deal happen, he added, then hesitated. I would have pushed it too hard. You were right to wait. Coming from him, that was equivalent to a standing ovation. As he got up to leave, he paused. Don't forget dinner tonight. Your mom's making that weird quinoa salad you somehow like. I smiled. I'll be there. He pointed a finger at me as he walked out. And don't work late. Success isn't just about business, you know. I laughed. I think I've heard that somewhere before. He didn't reply, but his grin said everything. Later that evening, I pulled into their driveway, still in my Civic. The porch light was on. The same one Dad used to yell at us for leaving on too long because it raised the electric bill. Heather opened the door with a smirk and a glass of red wine. Just so you know, she said, Mom made 2 quinoa salads, one with bacon, one without. We're officially growing. Inside, Dad was watching the game with the volume low. Mom was setting the table. There was laughter, awkward jokes, little jabs. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. As I sat down in my usual spot at the dinner table, I realized something simple but profound. I had been chasing their acceptance for years, thinking I needed to earn it. But the truth was, I already had. Not because of the billion-dollar company. Not because of the acquisitions or articles or the money. Because I showed up. Every time, just as I was. And eventually, they saw me. They judged me by what I wore. But in the end, they had to face who I really was. If you've ever been underestimated, not for your work, but for how you looked, drop a black heart in the comments. I'll know exactly what it means. And if this story hits something deep, like, subscribe, and stay with me. Because out here, we build in silence, and we rise with proof.